Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. One more college football story that I do want to get to. And it involves a guy that we talked about a lot over the course of the fall last year. That is Coach Prime, Deion Sanders. And so just to be clear, I actually kind of like Coach Prime. One, I think he's kind of refreshing. Two, I like the honesty. I like the candor. Bluntly, I don't agree with everything he does. I don't think it's the perfect way to build a team, taking, essentially, basically, even this offseason, which has been quieter than last offseason, taking like 30, 35 transfers between the spring cycle, between the winter cycle and now the spring cycle. I don't mind him. I don't agree with everything. And I will say there's been a lot of noise coming out of Colorado over the last couple months. A lot of more kids enter the portal. Now, they did get a fair number of kids in their own right. And I've largely stayed away because I think, everybody's kind of piling on, whatever. But I saw a piece of news because I do think that when we talk about Colorado, everybody's talking about, oh, it's over for Deion, and oh, it's over for Coach Prime, and oh, it was whatever. And then I saw something that made me realize, you know what? He's still actually doing pretty well for himself and probably better than people are giving him credit for. And that is because on Monday, I saw a headline that for the second straight year, Colorado has completely sold out of its season ticket allotment. Keep in mind, before Deion got there, they hadn't sold out their season ticket allotment in 27 years. They have now done it 2 years in a row. And it makes me realize, as much noise as there is on the internet, things aren't nearly as bad at Colorado as people think they are, in large part because I don't think Colorado is nearly as bad as people want them to be, okay? And so first of all, when I look at Colorado, I'll go back to what I've said really since September, October of last year. I think Colorado actually overachieved last season. You can agree. You can fight with me. We know how things started. We know how things ended. They started 3-0. Everybody's going crazy. They beat Colorado State in overtime. I think there was like 11 million people watching at 2 a.m. Eastern time or whatever it was when they beat Colorado State on that Saturday night. And the hype was a little bit crazy. And then they struggled from there. They go 1-9 down the stretch. They 1-8 down the stretch. They finish 4-8 overall. The only wins against Arizona State. And there were certainly some interesting games. Get blown out by Washington State, get blown out by Oregon. You have the 29-0 lead against Stanford and you end up losing. And so it certainly wasn't perfect, but let's also call a spade a spade. He took over the worst roster in Power 5 football at this time last year. Now we're down to Power 4. He completely flipped it, and the over-under win total was 3.5. He hit the over, which by definition means he did better than people were expecting. Didn't end the way that he wanted, but I don't think you can argue that he overachieved relative to expectations. And so one, always thought that they were kind of better than people gave him credit for. Because again, people were talking about them as a 0-win team, as a 1-win team. They ended up winning 4 games. They ended up beating the reigning national runners-up in TCU. They beat a good Nebraska team. They beat a good, not a very good Arizona State team, but they did overachieve. So there's that. The other thing, which I think has kind of gotten completely lost in the shuffle, is that everybody talks about, well, they lost all of these guys to the transfer portal. And again, I'm not here to say that they didn't lose any guys that they wanted, because Deion did talk about this. He said in the spring, oh, we lost mostly backups, blah, 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 this and that. Okay, cool. And I know when he said that was early on, and they did lose some more guys after. Dylan Edwards, the running back, is a really good player. He's at Kansas State now. Amarion Cooper, the cornerback, started at Florida State, transfers to Colorado. He's back at Florida State. So they did lose some guys. But I also do think it's worth noting that they actually did bring in a lot of impact players as well. That's the thing that to me gets lost in the shuffle. Everyone's like, oh, look at all the players that are leaving. Well, are we ever going to acknowledge that he brought in a lot of really good players in the portal as well? And I've said this all offseason, is last year he took bodies to fill the roster. This year, he actually took legitimately good players out of the portal. Like, it's worth noting. If we're going to talk about all the players that left, you understand he got a running back from Ohio State that was, I think, their second or third leading rusher this year, Dallas Hayden. He took an offensive lineman from Texas. Early in the previous cycle, he took a 4-year starter from Indiana, Khalil Benson. He took a former 5-star edge rusher, Quincy Wiggins from LSU. He took the LeJante Webster kid who balled out in the spring game over 1,000 yards receiving from Florida Atlantic. So I just bring it up to say, like, if we're going to have an honest conversation about Deion, it can't be negative, because I do believe he overachieved last year. And I'll also say this. I think he's actually significantly upgraded the talent this year. Now it remains to be seen how this team does this year. And like I said, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that he is the perfect person and I agree with everything that he's done this offseason. I don't think it's healthy to try to bring in whatever, 30, 40, 50 guys in an offseason through the portal. I don't think it's healthy to take 6, 7, 8 high school recruits and everybody else through the portal. Yes, I do think you need a foundation of 20 to 25 high school recruits every year. Some of them aren't going to pan out. Some of them are going to transfer. But if you get 15, 20 to stay per class, that's a pretty good system in place. So I'm not here to say that he's perfect or that he's this or that he's that or that he's whatever. What I am here to say, though, is you start adding stuff up. It's not nearly as bad as everybody makes it out to be. Last season, they overachieved. The portal stuff is actually probably better than people give it credit for. Lose some good players going out. You brought back in a lot of good players coming in. The season ticket allotment has sold out. Oh, by the way, we talked about it last week. Game number 1, already on national TV, North Dakota State. That is going to be the Thursday opening night game. So we'll see how it happens. I would add, I think, probably a slightly easier schedule this year outside of the Pac-12. Remember, the Pac-12 was really tough last year. No Oregon, no USC. You replace them with teams that you should be competitive with. Kansas has improved under that new coaching staff over the last 2-3 years. They're not invincible, though. Lance Leipold is a really good coach. They're not invincible, though. Chris Kleiman's a really good coach. Kansas State isn't invincible, though. Arizona's a really good program right now, but they have a first-year head coach after Jed Fish left. So I just bring it up to say I saw that piece of news. I think a lot of the Deion stuff is way, way, way over exaggerated.